So we're continuing in learning this week's Torah portion, which is called Bo, with some commentaries. So we learned yesterday that there was we're awaiting now the plague of the firstborn. All the firstborn of Egypt are going to die exactly at 12 o'clock at night, exactly at midnight. And beforehand, the Jewish people are going to slaughter a sheep or a goat. And before that, they're going to take the sheep and the goat into their house. So to take the sheep and the goat, they're supposed to take this into their house on the 10th day of the month of this first month of Judaism, which is the month of Nisan. So let's take it in the proper order over here. God warns Paro through Moses. He warns Paro that he's going to kill all the firstborn. Then after that, God gives Moses the commandment that they should sanctify the months. The months should be declared by looking at the moon, and then witnesses, whoever sees the new moon, should rush down to the great high court and testify that they saw the moon, and that's when they declare the month. We talked about this yesterday. And then after that, God gives Moses the commandment that every Jew should take a lamb or a goat into their house on the 10th day of the month, and then on the 14th day of the month to slaughter it. And then on the nighttime of the 15th, because in Judaism, the date starts with the nighttime. So as soon as the sun sets on the 14th, it's already the 15th, and then eat it. Eat that lamb. And there's very exact laws about how to eat the lamb. The lamb has to be eaten in a house, and it has to be eaten only with people that signed up for it in a group. And it has to be eaten together with bitter herbs. And it has to be eaten together with matzah. And it has to be eaten before the morning. You're not allowed to eat it after the morning comes up. We'll see until the sun rises up, until the earliest morning. We'll see the different times. And you're not allowed to leave any of it over in the morning. If you do, you have to burn it. And you're not allowed to have any chametz in your house. Everything, you're not allowed to own any what's called leavened bread that rose up, dough that rose up, forbidden, you can't. And you're not allowed to eat any bread that has risen up, right? That's called chametz. And you're not allowed to even eat any mixtures of this bread. And a person, the only people that can eat it are men that are circumcised. They have to be circumcised. And it has to be people that believe in God. A person that doesn't believe in God is not allowed to eat it. Not allowed to eat from the lamb. So altogether in this week's Torah portion, with all these commandments we've got, including sanctifying the month, and we learned about, we're going to learn, there's a few more which aren't relevant to this. There's altogether, in this week's Torah portion, there's 20 commandments. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative commandments. Let's see, some of them are prohibitions. Let's see, how many are there exactly? Here's this very good book called Mitzvot Hashem. We're going to learn from this book a little bit. We learned from it last year also. And there is, I'll tell you, there is in this week's Torah portion exactly 8 positive commandments, things you have to do, and 11 prohibitions, things that it's forbidden to do. So I just enumerated some of them. You know, that you have to eat the Paschal Lamb on the night. You have to talk about going out of Egypt. It's a commandment to talk about it. That's on this night of Passover, the holiday of Passover. Okay, back to the text. Let's start from the beginning. God says to Moses, first of all, he says to Paro, I'm going to send this plague. And it's going to be the firstborn are going to die of Egypt. And you're going to plead with me to stop. So says Moses. We did this. And God says, Paro is not going to listen to you because I want to increase my miracles. I don't want him to play it safe, let you go and still hold on to his identity. I want to destroy him totally from the inside. His whole personality is going to be subjugated to me. Now, God says to Moses and to Aaron, sanctify the months. That we did yesterday. Then next, after that, it says, God says, speak to the Jewish people. Yeah. Sanctify the month. Then it says, speak to the Jewish people and say, on the 10th day of the month, everyone is supposed to take a sheep or a goat into their house. The 10th of the month. And you have to keep it in your house. Watch over it. That's right. And then you have to watch over it, and you have to make groups of people because you're going to eat this. So therefore, it says you have to eat. They're going to eat it. This goat or this lamb, and you shouldn't leave any over. Shouldn't leave of it any over. So if there's too few people in the house to eat this a sheep, there's going to be too much left over. So what do? You and your friend, everyone should eat this lamb, good, as much as possible. Here's the Balaturim, says, Ish lefi achlo. Each a person according to his ability to eat. So what does this mean? Rashi says, lefi achlo, only people that are able to eat should be eating. Now, there's a lot of different explanations about what the sentence means. But Rashi explains it like this, that if there's an old person, a sick person, an old person, and he wants to make the Pesach offering alone, but he is not able to eat one kazayat. One kazayat is like 1 ounce of meat, something like that, then he shouldn't do it. He has to take somebody else to go along with him. If 2 of them together can eat a kazayat, according to Rashi, then that's good enough. That's good enough. Here we have an interesting Balaturim. Ish lefi achlo. If you take all these numbers and add them up together, you'll see that it means ochel kazayat. He should eat a kazayat. How he knew these and figured these out so quickly, I don't know, but he did. In other words, to tell you the truth, to tell you that, in other words, to come to tell you that if a person eats a kazayat, that's good enough. In other words, the minimum that you can eat from this Pesach offering has to be at least 1 kazayat. In other words, like 1 ounce of meat. If you don't eat the 1 ounce of meat, then you have not fulfilled your obligation. Here, by the way, is an interesting Ramban. Where is this? Kimmel. Here. No, that's not the Ramban. Here. The reason for this commandment of taking the sheep and killing it is because the zodiac, the mazal of that sign of that month of Nisan is the sheep, and it has very great power. This is the power of growth. As everything starts to grow, this is the month in the spring. It starts in the spring. Therefore, and the Egyptians used to worship it. We talked about this yesterday. We learned it in the Kli Yakar. Therefore, God commanded that you should eat a sheep or a goat. You should slaughter it and eat it to let you know that this zodiac power that the Egyptians worshipped was not what took the Jews out of Egypt, but rather it was God. God, he controls this zodiac power of the sheep. According to our rabbis, it said that the Egyptians used to worship a sheep. Not only was this their best month because it was the beginning of nature, but they used to worship a sheep. How much more so? This comes to let us know that God is casting down their gods and their power, because God is the creator of all of them. He's higher than all of them. That's what it says. Take sheep and slaughter their gods of Egypt. So says the Ramban. Okay. Setamim. It has to be a unblemished sheep or goat, male, 1 year old, from the kavasim of mina izim, from the sheep or from the goats, you can take it. Says Rashi, tamim, without any blemish, 1 year old. What does it mean, 1 year old? Within a year. In other words, not more than 1 year old. In other words, that it was born in this year. It's less than 1 year old. Hasn't finished the year. From the sheep or from the goats, either one you want to. Sha'af is because a goat is also called by the name of set. It's also called flocks of goats. Like it says se'izim, because it's also called the same thing. Here we have the hay, OrHaChaim. The reason why it says tikhu, that you should take, omina izim, tikachu, right? It could just say setamim, a unblemished animal within its first year, mina kavasim, omina izim, from the sheep or from the goats. Why does it have to say you can take? This word is extra. It says the OrHaChaim is coming to tell you that it says you can take whichever you want. Even if you do have sheep, but you want to take a goat, you can't. Therefore, it says lekicha leizim. Therefore, it says izim yikachu, that you can take goats if you want to, even though you have sheep. In other words, neither one of them is better than the other one. Even though it always says a Paschal Lamb, but that's English. And it should be for you should guard this. Take the sheep and guard it until the 14th day of the month. And then slaughter it. All the Jewish people, Bein Arbayim. Bein Arbayim means after 12 o'clock, afternoon. Rashi says it should be guarded. That's what it means, bikor. You have to check it all the time for 4 days before you slaughter it. Why do you have to take it beforehand? It was only done this year when they left out of Egypt. But after that, the Jewish people, when they came into the land of Israel, they did Passover, and they had the temple, and they did the Passover offerings, right? And there was no commandment then to take the sheep 4 days before. This was a one-time commandment. Only when they were in Egypt did they have to take the sheep and watch it for 4 days. Why did God make this commandment only in Egypt, that he did not command in any of the future generations? Rav Mattia ben Charash explained, Harihu Omar, it says, Va'avur alayich ve'ereich, I passed over you and I saw you. And it's in Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel. God said, I passed over you in Egypt and I saw you. Ata v'hine itcha eitorim. Now is the time of love. Higia Shavua. What does it mean, the time of love? God said, has come the time that I am paying off the deed, paying off the promise that I made to Abraham, the one that I loved. She'egalet banav, I promised that I would redeem his offspring. V'loyam b'yadam mitzvot, but the Jewish people didn't have any merits. They didn't have any commandments to litasek b'hem kadei sheyigalu, in order that I should redeem them. What type of a connection did they have? And most of the Jews were not even circumcised. So God said, don't worry about it. At Arom, I see the Jews are naked, va'aryeh, and without clothes. V'natan lem shtei mitzvot. So God gave them 2 commandments, 2 types of blood of the Passover and the blood of the circumcision. Shemalu b'oto laila, that they all circumcised themselves on that night. Now this is really bizarre. The Jewish people are going to be leaving Egypt in just a few hours. They're going to be eating this. And circumcision is a very, very painful thing, especially with older people, tremendously painful. And these people were all older. They had not circumcised themselves the whole time they were in Egypt, right? They were born in Egypt. They weren't circumcised. but there's a law that an uncircumcised person cannot eat from the Paschal Lamb. An uncircumcised person, a non-Jew can't eat it, no matter how circumcised he is, a non-Jew. Only a Jew can eat it. And even then, only Jews that are circumcised. So therefore, the Jews had to circumcise themselves, and they had to, and also the slaughtering the Paschal Lamb. I think they could slaughter it before they circumcise themselves. I think only eating it is forbidden. In any case, whatever it is, they did two things. Like it says in Ezekiel, the same prophecy. It says, I saw you and you were wallowing in your blood. What type of blood? Two bloods. It doesn't say your blood, but the mayich means two bloods. And so therefore they had to have the blood of the Pesach offering that they put on their door. We'll see that in a moment. And the blood of the circumcision. Homer Gam, as a blood britcha, shalachti asirecha mibur shamalo botoloil. It says that they circumcised themselves. It's all these are sentences from Ezekiel. All the Jews circumcised themselves in. I'm sorry. Again. Homer vedam britcha shalachti asirecha mibur ein bayim. Because of the blood of the circumcision, I sent you from this pit where there was no water. In other words, the terrible pit of Egypt, being the merit of the circumcision. That's in the prophet Zechariah. Shoya shutufim belilin. Says, why is Egypt called a pit that there's no water? Because the Egyptians were wallowing in idolatry. Omer Lamb, and the Jews were with them. The Jews were with them. What would you expect from the Jews? Right? They played along. God said, Mishchu kuchulachem. Said, take, we're going to see the sentence is going to be later in the sentence. It says, draw and take to you. Draw your hands from idolatry. In other words, draw yourself away from idolatry and take a sheep of the commandment. Okay, so that's the commandment that everybody has to take the sheep and everybody has to slaughter it. Says the Rashi, everybody slaughtered it. From here we learn that if you make an emissary, you choose someone to do a commandment for you, as there are certain commandments that you can't do. You can't have somebody put the tefillin for you. But the other commandments, like for instance, slaughtering the Korban Pesach, or like sounding the shofar, reading the Megillah, that you can have somebody else do the commandment for you. Kahal Adat Yisrael, that's what it says. That Kahal, the congregation, Adat, of the congregation, Israel, of Israel. Three terms. All of them, one is sufficient. It says they should slaughter it on the 14th, right? Call Kahal, the whole congregation, or call Adat, Eidah, the whole, or call Yisrael. Why does it have to say three? So it comes to tell you, Kahal, Ba'adah, Yisrael, Eidah, Yisrael. From here we learn that the Pesach offering in the temple was slaughtered with three groups, one after the other. One group would come in, the doors would close, and they would close. Now you have to understand that when they would come in, it was like, millions of people would come in. Millions of people would come in. It was like only one man for, maybe 10, 20 people. There were hundreds, who knows how many, hundreds of millions of Jews were there at the time in Israel, packed. In any case, however number there was, it was a big miracle that they all managed to get in. It was the same thing on Yom Kippur. Anyways, they all got in and they closed the doors behind them. Three different groups. This is in the Gemara, Pesachim explained. What does it mean? You should slaughter it. It says Bein Arbayim, between the evenings, from 6 hours and above. And this was from 12 o'clock in the afternoon and up. This is called Bein Arbayim. Okay, good. Further, Zion. Yes. You should take from the blood. You should put it on the two doorposts and on the mashkov and on the overhang. on the houses that you're going to eat it in them, where you're going to eat this sacrifice. The mashkov is the top. That's what he said. Only in the houses where you're going to eat this offering. And you should eat the meat on that night, sli eish, roasted on fire, and matzot together with matzot, al morim, and together with bitter herbs, you should eat it. Should eat this meat. So it says you should eat the meat, but not the sinews and not the bones. And you have to take any sort of bitter vegetable and eat it. Why? Because to remember the bitterness that the Egyptians gave to the Jews. Don't eat it partially cooked, or boiled, even totally boiled. It has to be roasted on fire. Its head is on its knees, on its legs, al kirbo, and the stomach is inside. So Rashi says, don't eat it na. The word na means very slightly roasted, that it's not roasted enough that it's edible. And also, don't boil it. These are all warnings. You're not allowed, this is a prohibition. Don't boil it, not in water and anything else. It says, Bashal Mabushal. It says, don't cook it in water. And Bamayim, it says water, right? What about if you want to boil it in fruit juice? What if you want to boil it in wine? Maybe that's okay. It says water. It says no, but it says Bashal Mabushal. Because it says twice, God is implying that he doesn't want us to do it, boil it in any sort of a liquid. You have to eat it only roasted on the fire, and it has to be completely roasted so that you can eat it, edible. Maybe 1/3 is good enough, I don't know, but it has to be enough roasted that everyone will eat it. Rosho al karavav, it has to be the head on the knees. You have to roast it at once with the head and the legs and the inside and also the entrails. You first of all take them out and you wash them off so there's no excrement in the inside, and then you stick them back inside. That's what it means, al karav. Okay, it means inside of it. That's what he explains. Here's a very interesting Dat Zkanim. Listen to this, Dat Zkanim. The Rav Obadia, the Evan Ezra, he explains, here it is, he explains like this. Because this was the god of Egypt, so they slaughtered it. And now they were slaughtering it, but you have to remember who is the boss over here. I mean, the Jews, they are the minority. The Egyptians are still the bosses, and they're surrounding them totally. So the Jews might get scared. I mean, they don't want to, they've already done enough damage to the Egyptians. The Egyptians are probably pretty aggravated with them now. And now they're going to kill the god of the Egyptians, the sheep or the goat, and they're going to roast it. Now, roasting is, if you ever made a barbecue in your backyard, so everybody can smell anyone who has a sense of smell, anyone can smell the smell of roasted meat. It wafts far away, roasted meat. Not the case so much of boiled meat. So you might think that the Jews will say, listen, let's not make trouble over here more than we have to. Let's just roast it a little bit, huh? Because maybe Penyar Gishu, maybe the Egyptians will sense it, they'll smell it, and they'll get mad at us. Talmud over it says, Al tochlim minamah. It says, don't eat from it partially roasted. Okay, so the Jews will say, okay, good. Listen, I got another option so that it won't arouse the anger of my next door neighbor, this Egyptian. Maybe they'll say, listen, let's boil it, but we'll cover it over. We'll cover over the pot so they don't see it. Talmud Lomer says, but ubashal mavushal. It says you should boil. In other words, what does it mean? Boil. Everybody should know that you're boiling it. Leave it open. Okay, so the Jews say, listen, I got another idea how we can evade, not attract attention. Let's keep a low profile. Let's do like this. Lachto charosh. Let's cut off the head, and we'll cut off the legs, and then the Egyptians won't understand what this is. Right? This is, what are you cooking over this? Oh, it's a big turkey or something. Talmud Lomer says, Rosham al Karov, you have to leave the head and put the head on the knees, al kirbo, on the inside, so that the Egyptians don't be ashamed, don't be afraid. Lo totiru, don't leave any of it until the morning. And anyone who does leave over in the morning, you have to burn it. It says, why does it say again, don't leave it over until the morning? And if you do leave it over in the morning, you should burn it. It could have just said very simply, don't leave it over until the morning. Don't leave it in the morning. Al tosiru mimenu ad boker, vanotar be'esh tisrofa. And if you do leave it over, you should burn it. Right? You should burn it. Why does it have to say and you leave it until the morning? It already said about the morning. Don't leave it over until the morning. And if you leave it over, hanotar ba'esh tisrofu. Why does it have to say 2 times in the morning? So he says, because to tell you that there has to be 2 mornings. What does it mean? That the morning means when the sun finally comes up. That's called Netzachama. You actually see the sun. Now, before the sun comes up, the whole sky gets light. Before the sun comes up, that's when the first light starts to appear on the horizon. That's what's called Olat HaShachar. Olat HaShachar is before the raising of the sun. 20 minutes, an hour, half an hour, whatever. There's different times. So the Torah comes and tells us that when does this, you can eat the Pesach, and Passover the whole night, but as soon as it becomes morning, it's forbidden to eat it. Now, when does the morning come? It says the fact of the matter is that it's forbidden to eat from the earliest time in the morning when the horizon just begins to get light. That's called Olat HaShachar. That's the simple meaning. And also there's another midrash that says that that if you do leave it over, when should you burn it? Immediately. When did the holiday start? The holiday started at sunset, right? You're already supposed to slaughter the sheep before sunset. You slaughter it, it says in the day before, and from 12 o'clock on, you can slaughter the sheep. So you slaughter it on the 14th. When the sun sets, that's the holiday of Passover, 15th. You're supposed to then eat it. How long can you eat it? The whole night. What if you leave some over? Then you have to burn it. When are you going to burn it? In the morning. But the morning, that's the morning of the holiday. Can you burn it on the morning of the holiday? So it says, no, you can't. Love, this comes to teach you that you cannot burn it on Yom Tov. You have to wait until the next day. And that's what the rabbis say. Anything that's left over until the first day, until the second morning, then you can burn it. Okay, kacha tachlu. So this is how you're supposed to eat it. How? Matnechem, and this you don't have to do in the future generations. Matnechem chagarim. You have to have a belt on, a sash. Nalechem b'raglechem, shoes on your feet. Makelchem be'erechem, hold a stick in your hand, a staff. Eat it quickly. Pesach hu Hashem, it is a Passover offering to God. What does it mean? You should have a sash, a belt on, ready to travel. Quickly, what does it mean quickly? Like a person who's really urgent, he wants to get out of Egypt. Pesach, it's a Pesach for God. What does it mean, Pesach? Pesach means to jump over. The sacrifice is also called Passover. It's called a Pesach. Why? Because God jumped over and God leaped over the houses of the Jews and smote only the Egyptians. He jumped from one house to another, one Egyptian house to another, and the Jews were in the middle. they escaped. Therefore, you have to do all of your things, all these things for the sake of heaven. So therefore, you should also do everything quickly, just like God jumped over the houses of the Jews. So you also do everything quickly, like jumping, to remind us the fact. That's why it's called Pesach. Pesach means to jump over. Rashi is going to say in a second that Pesach also means mercy. We're going to see it in a moment. Va'avarti b'eretz Mitzrayim, I will go in the land of Egypt on that night, and I will smite all the firstborn in Egypt, men, animals, and all the gods of Egypt. I will judge them. I am God. Rashi says, what does it mean? I will make judgment. God says, I myself, not by means of any emissary. That's what Rashi says. And the rabbis say a little bit different. They say, I will go over Egypt. I am not an angel. I will smite the firstborn. I am not a different type of an angel called a flame angel. And all the gods of Egypt, I will make judgment. I am not by any emissary. I am the one and nobody else. That's what God said. I'm going to help Moses and take the Jews out of Egypt personally. And the blood will be for you for a sign on the houses that you are there. And I will see the blood, and I will jump over the houses, and there will not be in you any plague to destroy you when I destroy the land of Egypt. What does it say? The blood will be for you a sign. It says Rashi, from here we learn, for you and not for any other place. For here we learn that the blood was put on the inside of the house, not on the door on the outside where you think the angel or God or whatever could see it. No. It says God himself passed over. He knew where the Egyptians were, which house was an Egyptian house. He knew who were the firstborn in the house, and he smote them, and it jumped over. God said, I will see the blood. What does it mean? How is God going to see the blood? It's in the inside of the house. We just finished saying it's on the inside. Only you can see it. What does it mean? God said, I will see it, because everything is revealed to God. Akol galui lefanov. Elohim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but God said like this, Notein ani et einei. I am putting my attention that you're doing my commandments. Therefore, I will jump over you. What does it mean? I will jump over. So here he says a little bit different. I will jump over means chamalti. I will have mercy on you. He brings other examples, etc. Says Rashi, I also keep insisting, says Rashi, that the word peseach means to jump over. Pesachti, to jump over, to skip over. Lo yeh b'chem negev, and there will not be for you a plague. He just said there won't be a plague. God said, I'm going to jump over your houses, and I'm going to smite only the Egyptians. What does he have to say? And you won't get smitten. Why say it again? Says the Rashi, aval havehu b'mitzrim. The plague will only be in the Egyptians. Okay, didn't he just say that? So the Rebbe says, listen. The Rashi says, listen, you want to know what's being said over? Listen to this. What if an Egyptian ran into a Jewish house to take refuge? You might think he gets saved. That you will not be smitten. The house where you ran, you won't be smitten, Jews. If an Egyptian tries to take refuge in your house, he'll get smitten. What about the other way around? What if there happened to be a Jew in the house of an Egyptian? God was only smiting the houses if a Jew is so stupid to be in the house of an Egyptian, so he'll get smitten with the Egyptians, right? Talmud Lomer, lo yebochem negev, that you won't get smitten. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, here, look at this. Here's the night the Jews are getting out of Egypt. The holy, amazing night that they're doing the first commandment. They're eating the Paschal Lamb, They're destroying the God of Egypt. They're about to be freed, a free nation. The Egyptians are the evil ones and the Jews are good. And here we have a Jew, the night when he's supposed to be at home eating for the Paschal Lamb, and he's chumming around with the Egyptians. What is he doing in an Egyptian house? So you can't get any lower than that. A person like that, for sure, he should be smitten also. Says the Torah, no. That the Jews, no matter where they are, no matter how low they are, they don't get smitten. Shows the unique love of God to the Jewish people. And this will be for you for a remembrance. And you will celebrate it, a holiday to God, l'dorotechem, for all of the generations. This is the holiday of Passover. Chukat olam, an eternal covenant, techaguhu, you should keep it. And this also goes, this is one of the many places where it says that the Torah is an eternal covenant with the Jews. God's not going to stop it. It's eternal. One more. Okay, a couple more. Here we go. 7 days you should eat matzah. But on the first day, you should get rid of the seor of all chumetz, of all, what do we call it? Unleavened bread. Bread that rises up. Get it out of your houses. Because anyone that eats bread that raises up, Israel, the Jewish, what's it called? Leavened bread? I never remember. Leavened. Anyway, whatever bread that raises up, you're not, anyone who eats it on the holiday of Passover, he gets cut off from the Jewish people. There's no death penalty for eating matzah, but there is punishment from heaven. Says his soul somehow or other gets cut off. I mean, nowadays it's pretty hard to understand what that means, because you see that people do the worst sins in public and they don't get punished. So nevertheless, you should know that God doesn't like it, and there's a punishment. From the first day of the holiday and the seventh day of the holiday, you are not allowed to eat any leavened bread, bread that raises up. Says one of the reasons is, and this is what we say also on the night of Passover, because the Jews had to leave so quickly that their bread didn't have time to raise up. So this is a remembrance for this. On the first day of the holiday, it's a Mikra Kodesh, a holiday. We'll go back to doing some of this tomorrow. On the seventh day, it's also what's called a holiday. The last day of Passover is also considered to be a holiday. In other words, you're not allowed to do work, to drive, to drive your car, etc. All work you should not do, but that which is necessary to eat, you can. So you're allowed to cook food on the holidays. On Shabbat, you can't. You're allowed to cook food. You should keep the matzot, and you should guard the matzot, the bread, so that it doesn't come to rise. It doesn't come to chimutz. You have to, when you make it, that's called matzah shmura. Because on that very day, God took all of your hosts. We learned about this in the Chassidut, from the land of Israel, and you should keep this day for all the generations as an eternal law. On the first day, on the 14th of the month in the evening, eat matzah until the 20th day of the month in the evening. We'll see what this means, because you really don't have to eat matzah any of the days. You only have to eat matzah really the first day. That's all. 7 days, you are not allowed to eat any bread that has risen up. And it shouldn't not only eat, but you're not even allowed to own it. It should not be in your house. It should not be in your possession. If you have a beer factory in another country, you have to sell it because beer is not a matzah. Beer is grains that have come in contact with water. That which makes chometz. Anyone who eats anything that's risen up will get cut off from the Jewish people, whether it is a convert, whether it is a person that lives in the land of Israel, etc. All, not only that, but all things that have machmetzet, anything that has even a little piece of bread mixed into it, right? You have a huge potato soup, no bread whatsoever, and somebody throws in one grain of bread, that's forbidden. You can't eat it. In all of your dwellings, you can only eat matzot. You have to eat matzot for 7 days. We'll explain what this means, God willing, tomorrow. But tomorrow is Thursday, so we'll do a little bit of this, and we'll also do the Haftorah. Haftorah, in addition, will take extra time, and we'll do the Haftorah. It's a Haftorah from Jeremiah the prophet. Very similar, because Jeremiah and Ezekiel prophesied at about the same time, at the end of the first temple, the destruction of the first temple. And there was a story over there that Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't destroy the temple immediately. He just sort of took all the Jews away, and he left a bunch of Jews back. And those Jews that were, and he left a king there, and they tried to make an alliance with Egypt and to make a war to break away from Nebuchadnezzar, from Babylon. And Egypt betrayed them, and also Egypt got defeated, and terrible stories. And so these are prophecies to Egypt. If you remember last week, we talked about it also. Remember that Paro said, the river belongs to me, and I made myself. So that's the prophecy of Isaiah, of Jeremiah, that we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. In addition to trying to finish as much as we can from this beautiful Torah reading. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Hope to see you tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning.